And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. If he's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous water. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door.
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.
I keep forgetting when I'm in love anymore. I keep forgetting.
All right. Here we go. Fix my headphones for a minute. Hello, here we go. First Blue Collar Intellectual episode of the new year. Last year was absolutely bananas. BANANAS. Let's turn this down a little bit. And there. Okay. So, I hope everybody had a good New Year's night. I am not hungover. As a matter of fact, I only had 2 drinks last night. Sat up with the kids, played a few games. We like do this tradition where we have people over and we play games with the kids every couple of minutes, or every like 15 to 30 minutes until the ball drops at midnight. And then, because everything is live streamed this year, we ended up actually missing the ball drop. So, there was that. It wasn't the best situation. It kind of sucked, but it is what it is. So, for this episode, my focus was going to be all the craziness this year. Let's do a couple fun stories, get into a more serious note, a little bit of inspiration moving forward. I'm gonna drink a beer while I'm hanging out with you guys, and let's go from there. So let's do a quick rundown. So we found out. I'm gonna start a little bit before the year. So we found out that the pandemic happened actually in March, or I'm sorry, that it was actually happening before the beginning of 2020. So I believe that my family actually all had it back at the end of October, beginning of November, which would track with when we found out that flights that had first appeared in Wuhan, province of China, and flights were being allowed internationally out of Wuhan. However, as I was saying, with everything going on and my family all being sick, we all got knocked out once. And just for reference, I never get sick, ever. Okay, and it was interesting because we were knocked out. I was completely on my ass for probably, I think it was 3 or 4 days, which is uncharacteristic for me. When I do catch something, I end up, being right back on my feet. I take a hot toddy. Hot toddies are proven to work, and I like brown liquor, so that works. There's actually this medicine, this organic stuff that my wife gets for the kids called I think it's Murray's or Murphy's or something like that. And it's got ginger and turmeric and lemon and zinc and all sorts of stuff inside of it, and dark honey. And it comes in a bottle about yay high. And I pour half a shot of that, and I warm it up, and then I pour some brown liquor on top of it, and I mix it up, and I take it like a shot. And that pretty much knocks out just about anything. Clears up the lungs, clears up sinuses, and you're all good and ready to go from there. So, like I was saying, this year we had some interesting stories. So we started off, and in January we found out about We found out about the coronavirus coming here in January, and then, of course, Trump locked down the country. But that was not necessarily what I was going to get into today. It was going to be more along the lines of some of the crazy, weird stories that came up in between. QAnon surfaced this year. Murder hornets. We actually had I guess UFOs, and now there's a mandate that Congress has, or that the federal agencies have, like 166 days or something like that to get all information regarding aliens to Congress and make a report, which is interesting because last I checked, we were denying the existence of aliens. So that's fun. Murder hornets, which I'm not gonna lie, that sounds like a bad name for like a children's soccer team or something. It sounds like something that a toddler would have came up with. Like, yeah, well, the bees that kill people must be murder hornets. Like a bad high school football team or something along those lines. But yeah, like I said, it's been an interesting year, and obviously we've had the political stuff that has happened throughout the year. You had immediately, once the virus hit, you had one governor after another using the most archaic powers and issues to try and some to galvanize their power. And like I just responded to on Parler to an article by Epic Times. And I'm just going to read you the statement so that you have it for reference, because I think I was being reasonable in this statement. However, Maj Toure had posted something on Parler, and I wanted to. It is a question he's being asked. I'm sure he reposted on Twitter. He's usually pretty good about that as well. But it said, being as objective and optimistic as possible, do you think governors suggesting lockdowns really want to help Americans? Why or why not? Now, personally, I believe they do. I believe they do. And it's not, I mean, it's not always the most popular thing to say that there are people in our government that we dislike or that are acting in what they believe in their mind is a righteous cause. Okay. And I do happen to think that most of the governors were trying to act in what they believe, again, what they believe is a righteous action. And my response was objectively yes. For most ideologically, for most ideologically throughout history, those with power often are often motivated by their own self-righteous beliefs that their actions are the only actions that could possibly make things better, and thus they push further with fervor until they're stopped. The actual despots with nefarious goals will practically, or for practicality at times, cease for the long-term success of their goals. Okay, basically, a person who believes they're acting in a righteous manner will continue to push and push and push unrelentingly because they believe that they're backed up by their own righteousness, or they're backed up by some sort of belief system or whatever. A person who's driven by a cause is always a person that should be taken more seriously when it comes, and a person who is more driven and unrelenting than a person who's working a long-term gain for their own personal benefit. And I think that is a completely reasonable statement. Some of you may agree, some of you may disagree. And that's completely fine. Whether you agree or disagree, we don't all have to love each other. We don't all have to kiss each other's asses and stuff like that. So that was my response to Maj Torre's question. And I had another one again on Parler, and this was in response to the Epoch Times article. And the Epoch Times article was massive amounts of evidence will be presented on January 6th. For those of you who don't know, January 6th is when Vice President Pence is going to stand in front of Congress, and he's supposed to announce the electoral results in front of Congress. And that is a purely administrative role from all my research, is that he reads the document that already exists. He doesn't actually have the ability to change the outcome. And then Congress votes to certify the electoral results. Now, my response when I echoed it on Parler was, if they mean to present evidence, it must be so irrefutable that no other conclusion can possibly be reached other than to overturn the election. If not, and the Republican lawyers fail to make such an astounding stand, Biden will be sworn in, and the lack of focus in Georgia throughout this entire time that the GOP has been focused on, or the entire time that we as voters and the GOP and pundits and everyone have been focused on what's going on with Donald Trump. You know, we've been focused on over here, but the left is moving over here. So, again, the lack of focus by Republicans on Georgia might well destroy any chance of retaining the Senate. If the Senate can be held, Biden can avoid bowing to the left while pretending to, and therefore rest all blame on, on a Republican-led Senate. If the Senate is lost, Biden will be forced into legislation by the far left, attempting to gain more power and control within the party, whether he agrees with it or not, unless Democrats begin to dissent. And I think that, again, is a very fair statement that any rational person can understand, because just because someone is the leader of the party, that means the voters voted for them. And that means the party, at least tacitly to the maximum of their control, allowed them to actually be sworn into office. Because over the last 4 years, the Republican Party has largely fought Donald Trump, and they have been at each other's throats throughout the entire time, and it has a lot to do with their disdain for his drive to actually fix problems. Because if you notice, Republican officials don't do a whole lot when they actually get sworn into office. So it is what it is. Being reactionary, we don't intend to really overturn anything and change the way the game is played in DC when we actually do get power, and that is something that needs to change. Okay, so like I said, I played some games with the kids last night, had a good fun night. I know I was supposed to stream last night, and I'm sorry. I was going to have a New Year's Eve message, and I was going to do this then. However, because we're here right now, I'm going to do it for you today instead. Okay. And what I wanted to bring up today is a couple different things. Okay. Now, these are some things that I had actually sent to, I had emailed to the White House, I had sent to Donald Trump, and tried to get to his administration to change the way that they message and they approach these topics with people, and some of the people that I actually know that were working with the administration. Okay. Here is the first one. If it allows me to actually Okay. It's loading. All right. So while that loads, I was saying. So let's see. Murder hornets, UFOs. Apparently, we're going to get a briefing in front of Congress in regard to what's going on. The Black Political Action Committee is going hard at Ronna McDaniel, trying to get her removed, and I would be completely fine with George Farrell taking over, because Ronna McDaniel is positioning to shove Romney down our throats, and I do not like Mitt Romney. I think we need to leave that old big government budget busting cronyism types. We need to leave that in the past where it belongs. That wing of the party, that wing of the party, that group that have controlled everything forever within the party, are the exact people that have driven. They're the epitome of what, when you hear the left complain about Republicans, they represent all of that. It's their policies, it's their messaging, it's their positions on issues, and Republican party line positions do not necessarily reflect principles of conservatism. Principles are constants. People either, and parties and organizations either they either work and operate within the boundaries of those principles, or they do not. They either adhere to the principles to varying degrees, or they do not. So there are actually plenty of issues where we say principally we stand. These are our principles of conservatism and constitutionalism, and then there's where we've actually created policy that is in direct conflict with our own principles, which is an issue in and of itself. Okay, so here's one of the things that I said earlier this year. Patriotism, because we use the word patriot quite often. Patriotism, to me, means to stand for the principles that the nation was founded on, and that we forever aspire to uphold. We may fail in our efforts from time to time of variable gravity, but the effort remains. In each moment that we continue to take steps forward towards the individual liberty and justice for all who endeavor in this journey with us, so that we may achieve this American dream together, our nation is its people brought together not by a single religion, ethnic background, or a common heritage, but by principles of the rugged individual agency and the true grit that make us the envy of the world. Patriotism is the unrelenting drive to uphold our expressed principles for yourself, for your family, for your community, and your country. Okay. I hope you all agree with that. Diana does. Thank you, Diana. That is what I define as patriotism. And I feel like we throw these statements out there all too often without properly defining what it means to us. Okay. Now, with this new push into this new year, I want to get into something I believe. I want to make my statement of what I believe that we can do and how we can continue the outreach and much of the work. Now, the rhetoric of Donald Trump is objectionable by any standard. The push as far as outreach and actually focusing on trying to get things done rather than the political avenues of how to say the right thing and whose ass to kiss to get it done. All right. My speech, the speech I tried to get Donald Trump to give and I tried to get up the chain was as such. We can approach different communities, such as inner city blacks, Hispanics, and disadvantaged white people, and address the issues of these hard workers have fallen through the cracks. We want all Americans affected by these perilous economic times to rise and seize the day with both hands. Americans of all colors, creeds, religious backgrounds to succeed together. Inspired by the ideals of individual liberty, we are a truly great nation to which dreams are attainable by anyone not adverse to the sacrifice required to achieve them. We haven't always lived up to our founding principles, but we have continued to make great strides anyways. We are a nation of true grit, a nation where the poorest can rise to become a billionaire, a cultural icon, a world-class athlete, an industrial tycoon, an activist that reshapes our thought, a Supreme Court justice, the best surgeon in a field, a nation with absolutely no boundaries. Yes, as inner-city blacks, Hispanics, and disadvantaged white people, we want all Americans to be able to do better. And I understand that we have failed at times. We can provide solutions and acknowledge the racial and cultural aspects without pandering. We can do better, we can be better, and we must be better. The truth is that as a constitutional Republican form of government, the solutions to most problems are not only more easily addressed, but legally at the local and state level. The closer to home solutions are, the more likely they are to address the issue wholesale. This is also where you have a greater impact and control over your elected representatives. There's a difference between a politician and a representative. And a politician considers themselves ever the governor and acts solely in their own interests. A representative considers themselves among the governed and throw themselves into the fray and sacrifice for their constituents. Many of those elected are politicians, and we need more representatives in office at all levels. Unfortunately, change will not come by voting for the same thing that you have had for decades, or the same type of leaders that we have had. Professional speakers that do nothing. We must move forward together with grace and love towards each other. We don't have to agree on everything, but we can be civil and we can work together. Okay. That was my statement. That was my speech that I wanted to get to Donald Trump, and hopefully that he would hear. And my understanding is there are people that actually try to get it in front of them and change the way that we bring these issues. Because I truly believe that State of the Union Donald Trump would have won in a landslide. And I don't want to filibuster for him right now. But my point was a different method needed to be taken throughout this whole thing. Now, funny, now I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to throw party out there because I think that's completely counterproductive, but there's something that everyone should be aware of. Doesn't matter what your governor's name is. Governors throughout this country, throughout this pandemic, have seen fit to use executive authority that does not reside within their office to lock down their states and prosecute and detain and arrest people for crimes that are not actual crimes. Meanwhile, forcing the average everyday citizen to deal with these arcane lockdowns and all these different requirements and regulations, these exact same politicians have gone out of their way to enjoy their own freedom and authority and live their own lives, even though the rest of the country was suffering. They saw fit to go on vacations. They saw fit to gather with family, even though prohibiting the gatherings of other families. They saw fit to do exactly the opposite of what they require everyone else to do. And this is no different than it ever has been. And the pandemic should have shown this to everyone. Everyone should have a deep disdain for everyone in office right now. And even so, in Congress right now, had we had representatives, especially on the Republican side, damn near, I think the last poll I saw was 73% of the United States. That means the vast majority of Republicans as well believed that a $2,000 payments would have been better than the $6,000. But one man stopped the vote, because it would have gone through had he not stopped the vote. No, I mean Mitch McConnell. The payments would have gone through. They had support from the Democrats, had support from quite a few Republicans, and had support from Donald Trump himself. One man stopped it, refused to bring it to a vote, and then he used a tactic that they use every time they want to shut down legislation, which is to attach something to it that you know is a poison pill that the opposite side will never vote for. So he attached something to it, which was the protections that he wanted to get passed, knowing that Democrats wouldn't sign it. And he's still allowed the other 2,000 to come to a vote. Now, this would seemingly be like, all right, this seems like a compromise. He's still proposing it, but he's proposing two separate bills. No, it's not a compromise. What he's doing is he's allowing Republicans to not vote on the plain two. He's allows it to the floor, but because there's another option, Republicans can vote for the one Mitch McConnell proposed and not for the original $2,000 increase that was already coming to the floor. And they can blame the Democrats for not being willing to vote for the compromise, whereas the Democrats will also be able to blame the Republicans for not voting for the compromise. Either way, this puts Loeffler and Perdue in a very precarious situation, as they're currently running for re-election and for the Senate seats in Georgia in the runoffs. And it's going to be a very close race. Anyone tells you that it's going to be an absolute, that it's going to be swamped and we're guaranteed to win, obviously has not been paying attention to how things have gone down this year. So, yeah, we have continued to elect people that don't give a damn about us and see fit to lord over us rather than to represent us as we direct them to. And make no mistake, they are employees of the people of the United States. They are not there to do whatever they decide to do for their own interests. Okay. It is a very, very interesting situation that we have here. And I completely understand what we're dealing with. It's interesting. Okay. And the only thing that I could honestly say I believe can fix it. Well, there's two things. I want to start a movement right now. Hashtag no clout 12 and out. Okay. I'm going to type it right down here at the bottom of the screen. All right. And I want everybody to understand this. Before term limits exist in law, they must exist, and they must exist at the ballot box, which means we can no longer consider the people who lord over us to be willing to pass term limits for themselves. We have to continuously remove those people from office. We have to continuously make them unwelcome in office. When a person has served 12 years, and I say 12 years maximum at the federal level, okay? When a person served long enough, they've become the exact government they went there to fix. At the point where you are a vestige and creature of the government, you cannot be the one to fix the government. No, institutions do not fix themselves. They are always a means unto themselves. They will always garner more power. They will always seize more authority. They will always do exactly what you do not want them to do. So, if we want to get these politicians, and I mean every career politician, doesn't matter what side of the aisle that they're on, they all need to go. That means Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Kevin McCarthy. Get rid of all of them. All right? If you've served 12 years total in Congress, you need to go. 12 years maximum in total. No clout, 12 and out. All right? That means it doesn't matter how you split it, whether it's 3 terms in the House, 1 term in the Senate, 2 terms in the Senate, or 6 terms in the House. When you hit 12 years, you need to go. If, hey, you know what? If you get picked up by an administration or you end up running for president, you get elected, that's fine. You want to ride off into the sunset or go chop wood for a living or become an activist, whatever. But you should no longer be in government after 12 years in office. You, regardless of what you've accomplished, that's great. Hand off the mantle to somebody that can take your place. Or ride off into the sunset. No one cares. All right. Like I said, I'm a conscious conservative. Work with Felicia Killings. And I believe that we can make a big impact. I will be working with George Farrell in a Black Political Action Committee to do some work in this upcoming election cycle. And for anybody considering running for office, the election needs to start now. All right, it's the new year. We need to be going to these events. We need to be talking to each other. We need to have a game plan, because when we go to primary out everyone who is a part of the system, everyone that spent the last 4 years fighting with each other but not representing us, everyone that loaded up both stimulus bills with shit, that both friggin' parties were perfectly happy to drive up the debt to give foreign aid to every country under the sun, including countries that are tactical, strategical enemies and economic opponents, like China, who's declared people's war on us last year. In 2019. So why are we giving foreign aid to literally every country on the planet when not every country on the planet wants to support us, work with us, and many of them actually want the demise of the United States. So I said, there's absolutely no reason we should continue to be working with these people. And I think that's a bipartisan issue. It's kind of a very simple, you make sure that you have food in the refrigerator and your table is set before you start inviting people over for dinner. And that methodology, that level of thought holds true for wars, that holds true for foreign aid, that holds true for immigration, that holds true for every issue that we deal with other countries on. If we have problems at home that we need to be dealing with, we do not need to be traveling around the world trying to fix everybody else's problems. And if you want to understand what the conscious conservative movement is, what the conscious conservative network is, check out at the bottom of the screen at Coach Felicia on Twitter, or Felicia Killings online, Conscious Conservative Network. Type it in on Google. All right. If you want to follow me on Twitter and you don't already, right there, friggin' at Julian Aciard, Blue Collar Intellectual on Twitter. I'm also Julian Aciard on Parler, and you can look me up on Spotify and Speaker and YouTube, so on and so forth. All right. Don't forget, subscribe and share. Subscribe and share. Subscribe and share. Okay. However, we need to pivot. We need to change how we do things. Okay. We need to do something different. I don't know how we fix on our own. Other than to vote out the people who are standing in our way. All right. Don't vote for them because they're safe. Don't vote for them because if you don't vote for somebody new, you'll never know what a new person can do. All right. You'll never get something different by doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. It's a definition of insanity. Now, personally, I'm a supporter of the Convention of States, and I believe that's a good avenue to be able to change things. I believe we can legitimately change how the game is played if we go with the Convention of States and we change at the state level all the laws. And most people, when I describe the tenets of the Convention of States, which I'll do a whole episode on that, most people end up agreeing, most voters. And I mean the vast majority of voters. So that tells me that the only reason that this is not a more popular movement is because people don't know that it is a movement. They don't know that it is an option. Or it has, like many things on the right, has failed to be marketed to the average everyday person. And if all of these ideas only stay within an intellectual circle of the minority of the movement, then how can we ever expect to move forward and actually accomplish anything? And the answer, I will give it to you, is that we can't. We need to change our messaging and change the way we discuss things. So in this new year, I'll be doing another episode where I will go strictly principles of conservatism and constitutionalism, of conscious conservatism, and then I will go over all the policy positions and stuff. I will tell you, based on our principles of conservatism, conscious conservatism, and constitutionalism, where we should reside, where our platform and our policy positions should reside within our principles. Okay, our principles do not reside within the party platform and policy. The policies should reside within our principles. Our principles are the foundation for what we attempt to build a movement on. And we need to start defining ourselves as conservatives, not as Republicans. If you are a Republican or a Democrat, you will fall for anything that is Republican or Democrat, regardless of whether it actually fits into your belief structure and your principles. Okay? We define ourselves by our principles and we market all solutions based on our principles first. Our party affiliation matters not at all. Okay? There are many independents that are more conservative than Republicans. There are many independents that are more liberal than Democrats. And there are Democrats that are pretty damn conservative, and there are Republicans that are pretty damn liberal, because the actual moniker, the letter that you decide to put in front of your name, the party that you subscribe to, doesn't actually always represent the principles that they espouse themselves to represent. Okay, it's not always intellectually consistent. So when I do another episode coming up soon, I will do an episode and it will specifically, I'll bullet point it, I'll even put it up on the screen, our principles. Then we'll discuss policy and how they fit into those principles, each principle and how the policy fits into it, so that we can have a good idea of when a politician is blowing smoke up our ass, when Republicans are, me as a conservative, I'm a conservative constitutionalist, conservative, unapologetic constitutionalist. I'm a conscious conservative. We need to be able to understand when a politician is actually being liberal, and I think we're getting better at that. But it's because of this populist movement that's going on. But we need to sharpen this populist movement into a scalpel, a spear, no longer a blunt object. Okay, voted for Trump twice. He is a blunt object. All right, and he served the purpose I need him to, which was wreck the establishment of the party. Now, everyone in the establishment of the party has played their hand. We know exactly who they are, and they all need to go. Every single one of them, they need to go, with no exceptions. All right, we need to replace the establishment within the Republican Party with good, strong conservatives that apply the principles equally to everyone, people who believe in voluntary community engagement and want to solve issues over argue whose party is better. Okay, that's the sort of political thuggery that gets us absolutely nowhere. All right, so I want you in this new year, I want you to invite people, share this with them, invite them to come on and watch, comment. I am more than happy, actually enjoy engaging with people watching. It makes it a whole lot more fun, and we can accomplish a hell of a lot more with each other when we interact with each other, and I can understand where you guys are coming from, and I can answer questions if you guys are not understanding where I am coming from. Okay. And I want to leave you guys, before we go, I'm going to leave you with one more, I'll say one more article that I wrote. All right. This one is an economic revitalization plan that I wanted to come up with post-pandemic. All right. My plan is a flat 10% income tax for everybody, a 15% corporate tax rate, a 1% sales tax, and a 10%, no, I'm going to have to lower that because that's unrealistic, a 2% capital gains tax, a $10,000 adult deduction, doesn't matter whether you're married or not, a $3,000 dependent child deduction, and a $1,000 minimum tax liability. So if everything equals out and your entire tax liability equals out and you don't owe anything, you owe $1,000. Okay. If after all your deductions, it wipes out your entire income, you owe $1,000 at the end of the year to be paid in payments or quarterly, doesn't matter. Okay. And it also requires the passing of the Balanced Budget Act. So we can no longer spend over our budget outside of a time of war. All right. And time of war will be defined explicitly as Congress has declared war on another country, and we are currently engaged in military actions, either on U.S. soil defending ourselves or against another country fighting abroad. Okay, the consolidation of federal agencies where redundancies exist, and the increasing of interagency communication, so that we no longer have agencies working different angles of the exact same thing, not talking to each other, which increases redundancies, is inefficient, and it ends up costing twice or thrice as much money. Okay, no loopholes, no exemptions. And again, I say no loopholes, no exemptions. So all the stuff that billionaires and corporations do to get out of their tax liability and pay less taxes, no loopholes, no exemptions. Remand the majority of non-essential regulations and redundancies at the federal level to the individual state counterparts, where voters have more control and the state governments have more control over their own localized issues. Term limits for Congress and the punishment of elected officials engaging in insider trading. This includes the use it or lose it and an audit of the federal government spending. Okay, this includes the ending of the use it or lose it government spending at the end of the payroll, and the ending of payroll taxes. And before you start getting pissed about them funding Social Security and Medicare every year, you're not actually funding Social Security and Medicare. If you were actually funding Social Security and Medicare, the amount of Social Security that I am projected to get when I hit 70, I think it's 75 now, or 77, would not be zero. Actually, it's negative dollars, because Social Security is going to be insolvent soon. So all of that just gets spent. It just gets spent. Government doesn't have savings accounts and shit like that. It's bullshit. Okay. Enact price transparencies for doctors, hospitals, drug companies, and deregulation of telemedicine, which we've already begun to do. There's no reason to not continue it. All right. Price transparency is something that's been for the last 4 years there's been fighting to get, and there's been a lot of pushback on it, because fact is, if you don't know how much it costs to develop a drug, how much the actual drug costs, then when there's no competition, when you go to the pharmacy, they can charge you whatever the hell they want, and you just kind of have to eat it. And that goes for doctors, hospitals, etc. All right, divestment from federal land. Now, I know a lot of people in the ADOS space that want reparations. And as far as reparations go, if I were to support them, it would look a lot like giving the government divesting from all the monopolization that it carries on federal lands, and making good on the 40 acres and a mule promise. And I don't necessarily need the mule. You can keep the mule. Mules stink. All right. But the 40 acres. And for those that will complain that your ancestors were Irish slaves and stuff like that, look, I get it. I get it. But this is not you paying me. This is not your ancestors that came here after the end of slavery paying my ancestors. This is the federal government divesting from land that is not being used for any purpose and giving it to people who were supposed to get reparations at one point in time, but ultimately it was agreed to not give them. Which, just so you know, there were reparations given to the Jewish, the Japanese, the Indians, so on and so forth. So land, which is a tangible, which means you can make something of it. It has a tangible value. It will immediately bridge the generational wealth gap, and you will hear a whole lot less complaining about generational wealth and the wealth gap, because you are actually handing over wealth that the government now possesses, that me and you, the citizens of the nation, are actually prohibited from being able to use. Okay. Punish corporations using illegal immigrants. Legalize or decriminalization of weed, and the end of the war on drugs. This is something that is an absolute must. It needs to happen. Okay. And we can focus on streamlining the programs that we have. Now, all this in conjunction with the Platinum Plan and a temporary 12% tax rate for corporations relocating their manufacturing from overseas back to the United States, and putting those manufacturing hubs within economically distressed and impoverished communities to provide living middle-class wages and benefits. This itself will immediately start to bring these communities out of poverty. That means all these communities in the Rust Belt, Chicago, Detroit, all these communities where manufacturing just left. They were single industry communities that got thrashed by the globalization efforts. We bring all these companies back and their manufacturing starts taking place back here. You're going to see the biggest industrial and economic boom in the United States ever. Okay. And this requires low interest rates. It requires the interest rates to remain low as wages grow, so that you don't immediately, as wages grow, decrease the buying power of the average everyday citizen and basically price them right back out of the market that they just caught up to. Okay. Again, 2020 was an absolutely dismal year. We dealt with some serious shit. Going into the new year, I want to stay hopeful. All right. I'm actually hopeful. I have plans in the new year. I plan on doing big things, and I hope you all have plans. I hope you worked on something throughout this pandemic to get you by and hopefully put you in a better place in the new year. And any anger that you feel from this election cycle, any anger that you feel from what you saw, any anger you feel towards politicians, don't let it go. Just focus it on making sure that you get out to the polls and that you are doing the work over the next 2 years to make this country better, especially conservatives. That means you may have to miss a couple basketball games. You may have to miss a football game or a 6-pack of beer. You may have to be out pounding the pavement, knocking on doors and talking to people. It means we're going to have to rethink our positions on things that don't necessarily jive with our principles. But we can do it, and we can do it together. All right? Everyone, God bless. Thank you for joining me today. If you did join me today, and out. All right?
And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. If he's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous water. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door.
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.